Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with the Dean. I'm Turney Stevens, Dean of the College of Business at Lipscomb University, and I'm delighted today to welcome not only to the program but to Nashville, two new residents of Nashville. Bob Harrison, welcome.
Thank
and
you.
Wayne Wolf, welcome.
Thank you.
We're delighted to have both of you on the campus today. Bob is a member of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. Bob is the chairman and principal owner of RCFS Corporation. We'll get to that in just a minute. That's the company you've just moved here. Wayne is a lifetime employee of McDonald's. You were very high in the executive structure at McDonald's. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And you're currently serving as the CEO of RCFS, and so we'll talk about that. Now, both of you gentlemen are moving to Tennessee from Chicago. Mm-hmm. And we hear a lot about relocation of businesses. I heard the governor speak yesterday about changing the way we try to attract businesses. So what caused you to move to Nashville, Tennessee, of all places?
Well, I'll take a little bit of a run at it. Number one was the atmosphere of the politics here. The state had a balanced budget. We saw that their government was in the line, and it was centrally located in the country for our type of business, which we would like to do out in the Gulf and the East Coast. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the major factors for us to move down here.
Did the state recruit you, or did you find us?
We kind of found you.
Found us?
Yes.
Wayne, you're the CEO of the company. Maybe we should sort of start at the beginning here and talk about what RCFS does, what type of business it's in, maybe even what RCFS stands for.
The letters stand for Red Cloud Food Service. Bob comes from the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, and Red Cloud was one of the chiefs of that tribe. So Bob adopted that name when he founded the company originally. I became involved with Bob as a business partner after I left McDonald's. So we took two existing businesses and merged them together as one. And today we are a frozen food manufacturer and a distributor of frozen foods, both commercially here in the U.S. and then with the Department of Defense internationally.
And I think that brings up an interesting area perhaps to delve into a little bit, because most of us don't know much about selling to the government, but you all do a lot of government contracting. Tell us how that works, Bob. And is your status as a Native American helpful to you in that?
It actually, it's a door opener. Helps us get in the door. But the main thing in business is if you don't have good infrastructure, good products, and good pricing, you're not going to stay in the business. Mm-hmm. So in answering your question, working with the government, it's really a hard process. If I could say, just going back to the first product we ever got in there, it took about 2 years.
In order to break through and
to get
that
one
first
order
contract.
Yeah.
Now, once they got to know you, then did it become easier after that?
Well, it's as Wayne would say, it's a process in working all the time. You got to build your reputation. They got to believe in you. You got to have good ethics, and as they see that that's one of our skill sets and our honesty and integrity, it starts to stand out. Mm-hmm. So this is our 7th year, mm-hmm. and we're gaining a lot of traction.
Mm-hmm. And the products that you sell to the government are food-related products that are used by the armed forces, I presume. Are there other areas where you sell products?
Well, we make products for the Army, Navy, Air Force, products all over the world, and I would say probably about 70%. 70% of the products would go overseas to our soldiers that are fighting in the field every day, and then the other 30% would be in the retail sector.
So Wayne, you spent a lot of time at McDonald's.
I did.
Must have been an interesting era during the years you were there. What was your role at McDonald's? Approximately what years were you there?
I'm one of these fellows that had the privilege of starting at McDonald's when I was a teenager.
Really? In a store?
I did. Just couldn't leave.
Really?
So if you count those years, it was about 33 years that I worked inside that enterprise.
Really?
So I began my career with one of the original licensees of McDonald's in the United States, based in Pennsylvania in the Pittsburgh area. And then I moved out of that business and into the corporate environment about 10 or 12 years later, and worked in our corporate offices in the Chicago area for a little over 20 years.
There's some interesting ties between Nashville and McDonald's. We were the home city for Jack Massey, who bought Kentucky Fried Chicken and really turned it into a major national company. Some might say that Jack Massey really invented the fast food industry because he got to 1,000 stores before McDonald's got to 1,000 stores. And yet Ray Kroc is one of the great business success stories in the 20th century here in the United States. Did you know Ray Kroc?
You know, I met Ray several times. I was a young man then. I came a generation after the guys that actually built the original McDonald's enterprise. Ray was, his generation was based on hard work and a lot of belief in yourself. So Ray was a consummate sales guy, and he could influence just about anybody in the direction that he wanted to go. And I would contend that, from the beginning, much of what makes McDonald's today is because of Ray's insights into people.
And what were those insights? What made him special, or what made the company so able to grow so quickly?
I don't know that there's an easy answer to that question, or that I'd be the expert to answer it. I'd just give you a couple of observations. Ray surrounded himself with people that were capable in areas that maybe he didn't see himself skilled in. And the whole enterprise was built around the idea that you can get a lot done if it doesn't matter who gets credit for it.
And so he was able to spread that credit, I guess, a lot of different ways. And
Yes,
today,
sir.
McDonald's has, what, about 30,000 stores around the world?
Yeah, I don't keep count any longer. When I left McDonald's, the count was 30. So I would imagine today it's 34, 35,000
Wow.
restaurants. Yeah.
Amazing success story, worldwide phenomenon. You can go anywhere in the world and find a McDonald's.
It was a wonderful business experience, and I think what I remember most about my time there was the desire to do the right thing. And there were many an opportunity, especially in a franchise type environment, where conflicts would arise, misunderstandings, and the resolve of the company to bring those things to closure and to do it in a way where people were respected and cared for was pretty inspiring.
Amazing story. Bob, how did you and Wayne meet?
We met through a mutual friend about 8 years ago, introduced us. I was looking for a manufacturer to make some products. At that time I was doing distribution, and me and Wayne kind of sat down and introduced us. We looked at each other a couple, three, four times. We're still looking at each other 7, 8 years later. And as we started to grow, and some of the stuff that Wayne had said from his background and talked about infrastructure, that was a big word to me, infrastructure. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is pretty interesting, and the skill set that he has, he's actually, if I could say this, it brought me on it. I feel like he's my mentor, because where I came from the Indian reservation, and learned in a different way things, and he's been very helpful over the years to help us grow together. Different skill sets, different levels of competency to get us to the place that we're at today. So.
And your role at McDonald's, Wayne, was in, at least the later years, was in supply chain, global supply chain.
Yeah, it was. The last 2 assignments I had at McDonald's were as an officer responsible for supply chain, and then at the very end of my career, corporate strategy.
And so supply chain becomes a really important part, I would think, of a company that's in the business that you're in. It's very important to figure that out correctly.
Well, if I can brag on the company a little bit, The young men were out at one of our biggest vendors yesterday, and I'll let Wayne finish. This is really makes us proud.
We have a large customer that's based in Dubai, and they serve the Department of Defense in Afghanistan, so they're the primary distributor there. And they make up a significant piece of our export business. They're a multi-billion-dollar company, and our two business line managers, one on the manufacturing side and the other on the export side, participated in our annual business review in Washington yesterday, without Bob and I might say, which I think is probably an important point to make about developing the next generation.
Sure.
And they received an A rating and a top 15 position in all of that company's
Business.
suppliers.
Well, congratulations.
And they actually made a commitment to us to double our business over the next 12 months as a result of that,
How
which
about
is
that?
kind of amazing.
Yeah. They want us to be in the top 10.
Well, congratulations to
So-
both of you.
That's quite an honor. But it all boils back to that famous word, infrastructure.
Yeah.
And
But that's true of most businesses.
yeah, but when you came from across the tracks like I did, you didn't understand that. And as I listened to Wayne and his philosophy and direction, it really makes a lot of sense. And we wouldn't have that growth today if we didn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
And them young men being able to look proud and stand proud with the excitement out of them, coming back and telling us that's huge.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'm interested, Bob, in your background as a Native American. We perhaps don't talk enough about Native Americans and the contributions that Native Americans have made to all of us, really. There's a lot of discussion, though, about how we've perhaps been unfair to Native Americans. Tell me about your life story, what you'll share with me.
Born and raised on the Standing Rock Sioux Indian Reservation. Real hard, tough world in the mid-50s, early 60s. Back then, nobody wanted to be an Indian. Some of the struggles was with my mother. She was one of the kids that was taken from the reservation, and they had a video out on PBS TV called In a White Man's Image, which they took her, cut her hair, and put her in uniform for 12 years. So those kind of...
They would be...
The white man.
The white men.
Yeah. So they wanted to integrate the Native people, so they'd take their kids, educate them in that way, and give them an education, which was really good, because I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for her education and her will and my father's will to get off the reservation so we could get an education, so we could own our own house and do the American dream. So
Now, you mentioned that you grew up on the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe Reservation. Where was that?
Fort Yates, North Dakota.
In North Dakota.
Yes.
All right. And there are reservations that are set aside by the government in many parts of the United States.
Yes.
Those are special areas that have special privileges, in addition to perhaps some disadvantages.
Yes.
One of the things we hear a lot about regarding Native American reservations is the high rate of alcoholism, for example.
Very-
Did
very-
you see that?
Yes, firsthand.
And what causes that? Is it despondency and...
Well, there's a couple theories. One of them is that the Native American people never were acceptable to alcohol because the white man ended up giving it to them 200 some years ago. And their bodies and their makeup was so far beyond or before the alcohol that it treats their system totally in a different way. So that would be one theory. The other theory is poverty. And if you really look at the Native Americans, it would be, it's almost like poverty of the mind, because when they were given entitlements, they had no desire to better themselves because they were always being taken care of.
And so you were able to make your way off the reservation, out of that life, and you created a different life for yourself. Do you now have pride in the fact that you're a Native American? Are you proud of that bloodline?
Well, one of our missions as a company is to support the Native American culture. We participate in all the events across the country, from D.C. to last week in Las Vegas. Was the Res 2012, the NIGA, the casinos that are out there, and the National Congress of American Indians. So, as a company and as a person, I still have a home there. I still go back as much as possible, and we try to bring back some of the education and some of the things that we do so that the Native people can get off and get their opportunity out there.
If you were President Obama, what would you do to benefit the Native American population?
I'd cut entitlements.
So what's intended to be helpful really turns out to be hurtful.
They have their own infrastructure there, and if they would build on what they have and work within their own group, they could do a lot better than what they're doing right today.
Okay.
I mean, they have their own government. It's a country in this country, and I believe that if they work together, that they could have their own towns, own whatever they want, and have their own economy.
Mm-hmm. Now, you brought me a gift today.
Yes.
Which I very much appreciated. This is called a talking stick, and I'll hold this up so that we can see it on camera here. Perhaps that's a good shot. And maybe you could tell us what a talking stick is.
Well, you'd have to give it to me in order.
All right, I'll be happy to do that, but you have to give it back again. Because I'm glad to get it.
Talking stick's a traditional piece. Whoever has the talking stick can.
Oh, that's
talk.
why I have to give it to you.
Yeah, so now I'll let Wayne say.
All right, so in a meeting, you would pass this around, and if you don't have the talking stick, you're supposed to not be talking.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, I am a participant in several meetings that this might come in
There you
very
go.
handy. So thank you for the gift.
You're welcome.
Well, Wayne, I'll pass this to you now so that you can talk. And let's turn our attention back to global supply chain. We are very globally oriented here at Lipscomb. We're one of only 15% of the colleges of business in the United States that require a global study experience for our MBA students. We have 5 different trips traveling around the world each year. We're fascinated by the future of global interaction around the world. I wonder if you have some thoughts about the competition that we're currently engaged in with Asia, for example, specifically with China, where the future of that lies. We've heard a lot about supply chain in China and China surpassing the United States as a manufacturer. What's your experience with that?
Well, I think I'd start by just observing that there's been, in the last 20 years, a great amount of knowledge sharing from the United States throughout the Asian continent. And that would go beyond the Pacific Rim and into India as an example. So to a great degree, much of the progress that's taking place there now is at the benefit of what we've learned here in the United States. So I don't really think it's a one-way street. It's kind of a two-way street relative to that. If there's at all a heightened sense today that may be creating an imbalance from a growth point of view, I think it's probably more of a misunderstanding. What possibly turns the tide for us are some cultural differences. And the thing that stands out for me more than anything is a misconception that Americans have about truth. We spend such a great deal of time today talking about what integrity looks like in business. And yet I have to share, my experience is many speak to it, but few actually practice it. And that, I think, has created a significant issue for ourselves when we engage with other cultures. If we come into a country and we express that we're going to operate in a certain way, and then we don't, it creates an environment where the counterparty is trying to interpret what that means then. And it's not always on the plane of, is it just simply trust? It can translate itself into the practice of business? So can we trust that the processes that are being expressed to us are going to be accurate? Can we trust that a long-term business deal that we're going to structure is going to have life? And it creates an environment where the negotiation kind of breaks down. So what might have started as a wonderful beginning, because we aren't practicing what we're preaching, if I could just use that term, it creates all kinds of problems. I know for our business, if I could just take it down to a microcosm for a second, I really attribute a great deal of our success. Many would say that in our business, we've grown very quickly. I know our banking partners are amazed at what we've accomplished. Other players in the Department of Defense arena find it interesting. And there's a whole list of things, but if I were going to hone it down, I'd say the very first was, we do the right thing, at least we do our best to do the right thing, even when it hurts us. And I think to a great degree, that gets notice. If someone wrongs you, and your action is then revenge or to create some kind of animosity, it breaks down the forward momentum that you have. If conversely, if there's something that you feel has been a problem created for you that is not of really your responsibility, you have two choices: complain about it or do the right thing and work towards a different kind of a resolution and solution. So we really spend a lot of time throughout our entire organization expressing how important it is for every one of our folks to know they have the authority to do the right thing, even if it's going to be a negative to our company. Because what we want to be known for is not the short-term wins, but the kind of people that can be trusted long-term when a problem needs solved. So I'd say that's a big thing that's missing today in Fortune 50 companies or small entrepreneurial companies.
And when you talk about doing the right thing, you're not just talking about making the customer happy.
Not at all.
You're talking about doing the right ethical thing, the right moral thing, the right integrity thing.
Doing the right thing could mean that, one, you have to admit the mistake. You have to express what brought it about. You have to show what's going to correct it. It could be that someone has taken advantage of you financially. And the reality is you may have a strong case. Let's say there's a product problem, and there's really nothing wrong with the product, but you've got proof positive that the counterparty is the one that created the problem. Sometimes doing the right thing is acknowledging that it's a problem and not backing off of that, but suffering the consequences of that financially so that you can move on beyond it. In that moment, you may not win that battle, but the war will be won longer term because you'll have an impact even on that customer, because they will remember that you based your response on real information, but in turn, you still honored them by resolving the problem without making it an issue for them. The customer we just gave you an example of, we had that very experience with. And it was, the problem that I'm thinking of was financially a significant expense to our company, just shy of $1 million. And we made the decision, not because we didn't feel we could resolve it another way, but because we felt in the long term, doing the right thing in that situation was about convincing these folks that they could operate differently than they were. And the only way we could get them to operate differently was by demonstrating we would. So,
now I know both of you are men of faith, and I wonder if you derive that commitment to do the right thing from your own experiences in a journey of faith, or whether, for example, in your case, Wayne, did that come from your training at McDonald's? Did you take that with you from the culture of McDonald's?
The foundation of it is in my faith. I became a believer when I was 30 years old. And I grew up in a poverty-stricken area where strength mattered more than righteousness. And after coming to faith, I had a different view of how to approach problems. conflicts, those types of things. So it's definitely based in my faith. You know, one of our guys on our team reminds me that I'm simply quoting Psalms 15 when I make that statement. And yet you could walk around to any of our guys and ask the question, what matters here? And I have a lot of confidence to think they would say, we're going to do the right thing even when it hurts. So, so the foundation is that. Now, what I will credit McDonald's with is it operates that way.
Truly operates that
It
way.
operates that way. And I could give you countless examples of that I'd probably need permission from the company to be able to speak to. But I can tell you, my experience at McDonald's is just that.
And Bob, did you come by your faith from your mother's knee, or was this something that you developed as an adult?
Well, I was brought up on the Indian reservation, and at that time there was missionaries, and it was the Catholic mission, which is, they still have a church there today. And if you went into the church, the Catholic church, half of the stuff is dressed up in Indian, the other half is the normal Catholic church. It's kind of neat to see. So they kind of worked with you. I got my faith there, and over the years I always had trying times with my faith, but having a good friend like Wayne always helps me reinforce it.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I'm fascinated to hear your reactions to living in the South. One guest from North Dakota, one from Pennsylvania, both by way of Chicago, global perspective. And now you're living in the South. You're living in Nashville, Tennessee. So what's your reaction to life in the South?
I'm glad to be here. It's like a breath of fresh air. I love the people, the hospitality of the people, meeting you, just meeting a lot of the people around here, and I'm really looking forward to making this my home as well as my home for my boys.
And how about you, Wayne?
I have to admit, I didn't think at this stage of my life I would be planning myself elsewhere. And I guess the bottom line is there's absolutely no hesitation. There's a peace about it, and I share the same feelings Bob has just expressed. It's refreshing. So whether it's from a business perspective or a personal perspective, and let's not forget the weather in Nashville in the winter far exceeds that we're experiencing in Chicago.
Well, now I have to tell you both, you have been the beneficiary of an unusually warm winter this year. So don't always expect it to be quite this nice. We're not normally in the 60s and 70s in the winter, but we do generally have better winters than Chicago. And a lot of folks have moved here from Chicago over the years. I remember years ago, I was doing an interview with the chief executive officer of Marquette Cement. Great big company, public company. They had moved to Nashville from Chicago, and I asked him why they made that move. I said, I guess you had legions of people doing analysis and numbers and data and all that sort of thing. And he said, no, not really. And I said, well, so how did you do it? And he said, I got up one morning, I looked out my window, I said to my wife, we're going south. And I said, well, how did you pick Nashville? And he said, we looked at a map and we said, that looks like a good place. Let's go try that.
How about that?
So welcome to Nashville. We're delighted to have you. I will warn
Glad to
both
be
of
here.
you that people never leave.
Yeah.
If I had $1 for everyone that's been moved or transferred into Nashville and then refused to leave, I'd be a wealthy man today. So we're delighted to have not only both of you individually, but also RCFS Company. And thank you for moving your company to Tennessee and to Nashville, and we're honored to have you as new residents here.
Well, thank you for welcoming us. We appreciate it.
We're
much.
delighted. We'll look forward to seeing you on the Lipscomb campus often.
All right, sir.
Be a good place for my boys.
I hope so.
Yes,
I hope
sir.
so. Well, we would be delighted to have them, and
We'll get them over here.
anything that I can do to help you convince them to do that, you let me know. Well, we thank you for joining us today. This has been Conversations with the Dean, and my guests today have been Wayne Wolf and Bob Harrison, new residents of Nashville, officers of RCFS Corporation. We're delighted to have them here in Nashville, and we were delighted to have you as a viewer today for Conversations with the Dean. Please join us again soon.